Hi, I'm Paul from TribeLab, and it's my great pleasure to give you a whirlwind tour of our fantastic product called Workbench. So the purpose of Workbench is to allow you to organise trace and log data to streamline analysis. And it's a great tool to complement Wireshark as it adds some fairly advanced filtering and merging capabilities. And it also enhances Wireshark by providing things like side-by-side trace analysis and support for data formats that are not normally supported by Wireshark. So the layout, as you can see, we have this container here called the Object Explorer. I'll show you that in a bit more detail. That's where we organise all our data. Here we have a toolbox. The toolbox can contain any tool you choose. So you can see that I've even got things like Media Player in my toolbox. Over here we have these things called transformers. I'll explain the purpose of those later. Then we have this desktop area, which is where we can marshal the data. We can perhaps extract subsets of the data and put them onto the desktop. And then we have this active area here called the Workpad, and we can vary the size of the Workpad to suit us. All of these panes in this application are all undockable, and so I can say unpin that one, I can pin it, I can make it float, which means that I can move it around, and I can then redock in any position I want it. So for example, I could have it at the top, which actually doesn't really suit me, but just demonstrates the capability. So let's put this back to where it was. Now we've got that back to normal, let's actually use some data. So I'm going to pick some data out of this directory. You can see we have this file here, which is a Wireshark trace captured from a web server. I'll drop that onto the desktop. Let's go and find some other data. Let's take this database area here. This is again another Wireshark trace. Let's drop that onto the desktop, and now I'll move the Windows Explorer away. So we can't act on the files when they're in this area here. We have to move them into the active area, and we can just drag and drop Wireshark in the normal way and open them. Now, of course, dragging and dropping Wireshark onto these traces is not that interesting. We could do that just with Wireshark. But what we can do is we can use some of these more advanced tools. So we can use this marker tool, for example. And if we run that tool, what it's doing is it's skipping through the whole of this trace file looking for different types of markers, ping markers or markers generated by the Sonar marker tool. So for example, if I'm interested in this marker number 7 here, what I can do is I can right click and I can launch straight into Wireshark, and it will take me straight to the marker. You can see it's there as the selected frame. So that's just some of the things that Workbench provides us. But if we clear this, perhaps more interesting is creating a workspace, what we call a workspace in the Object Explorer. So now let's build a workspace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these trace files. So let's take this trace file here, drag and drop that, and it's prompting us for a workspace name, so we'll call this test WS, and you can see that it's dropped that into there. Let's back up, go to the web one. We'll take this trace here, which is a Wireshark trace, drop that into there, and take the network trace from the database file, drop that into there. But interestingly, what I can also do is do things like here I have a Procmon trace from the PC. I can drop that into there, and it's detected that it's a Procmon trace and just created a structure for me. And I can keep doing that and building up my structure, and then just press Ctrl S to save the workspace. So that's one way to do it. The other way is a more manual way, which means you can actually just go and build the workspace by clicking buttons. Either way is perfectly valid. What I want to do though is I'm going to take us to a workspace that I already have created, which is this one here. And you can see that this has quite a large structure with lots of different data types. The hierarchical order of the objects in the Object Explorer is workspace is the whole of this container. Then we have things called instances. So in this case, an instance is one problem experienced by one user and then another problem experienced by another user. And then we have data types. Within those we have data sets. So we might have a set for a PC and a set for a web server. These have only got single files in them, but if we look at this instance here, you can see that actually this PC set has several files in it. Now the reason for doing this is it's quite clever, because what I can do is I can operate on the whole set. So for example, I can go searching for markers across the whole set of files, and I can treat it just as one object, which is pretty powerful and really does streamline analysis. Okay, now the other interesting thing about the objects in the Object Explorer is there are two other things. The first one is that they don't have to be on the on your file system in this hierarchical order, or perhaps in this hierarchical order. These files can be anywhere. We just organise them in a way that suits us. So for example, some of the files I have here are actually sitting on file shares, and some of them are on my local C drive. The other great thing about workspaces is that I can export the whole workspace and share it with a colleague. So I go to File, Export the Workspace. I'm not going to export it because it will take some time, but what it does is it pulls all of the files that are linked into the workspace and then zips it up and exports it together with a couple of control files, which means that a colleague can simply import the whole workspace using this import dialog with one single click, and you can see there that is the exported workspace. So I can simply click on that and it will immediately bring in the whole workspace, which is great if you're working as a team. The toolbox can contain anything. So you can see here, well, I've even got things like Windows Media Player. So I can watch videos from within Workbench, which is useful when you're trying to match up different types of data and analyze different types of data from different sources. So let's now talk about this thing over here called transformers. This file here is a network trace captured using the Windows netshell trace command. That's a format that's not supported by Wireshark, and yet I can open that file in Wireshark with no problem. And what's happening is, in the background, one of these transformers is actually converting the file into a format that is supported by Wireshark. Perhaps even more interestingly, I can take this file here, which if I just drop Ultra Edit onto it, you'll see what it contains. It's a weblog from a Microsoft IIS server, as you can see. But I can even open that in Wireshark, which means that I can do the usual sorts of things, such as filtering. So if I only wanted to see all entries with this URI, I can apply that as a filter, and sure enough, I just get those URIs. Other things that are interesting is that the IIS log includes a time taken value, which I've applied as a column over here, and you can see I've got time taken in my profile, and I can order it and look for slow response times. So this one doesn't look particularly slow, but I think if we open this up and now look for the slowest response times, you can see I've got 35-second response times. This value is in milliseconds. So you can see that I've definitely got some problems with this particular web server. So that just gives you some idea of the flexibility of Workbench and using these transformers. And the final thing I wanted to show you was the workflow capability. So if you're unsure how to do something, then what we can do is we can actually access a bunch of workflows. So for example, one of the things I might want to do is match traces from two different capture points where the traffic crosses a network. So maybe I'll have traces captured at the client end and traces captured at the server end. And I can simply start up a new instance and start to work through this workflow. And it simply prompts me with things to do. The interesting thing is that as we work through the workflow, it starts to it asks for information and starts to add context to the workflow. So instead of referring it to the user as the user who's having the problem, it will actually refer to that user by name, for example, and it does more sophisticated things than that, such as gives you direct prompts of how to enter a filter term, for example, based on an IP address that you entered earlier. So all of that's there. There are also decision points in these workflows, so it can cope with many different varieties of scenario. So that's a really quick rundown of Workbench. You can download a trial copy right now from the TribeLab community website. So that's community.tribelab.com, and go to the download section. We'd love for you to use it. We'd love to get your feedback. So I hope you enjoy it, and please let us know how you get on.